I knew absolutely nothing when it came to having a baby, but I also knew that I wanted to have the tools to be calm and relaxed. Whatever that birth looked like, I didn't want it to be prescribed or to say this is how it's going to go, or I didn't have a plan, but I just knew that I wanted to be as ready and in the moment as I could be.
Welcome to the podcast. I'm Tracy Donaghy. Today I'm speaking with author, award-winning journalist and mom, Kathy Donaghy. In this episode, Kathy shares her experiences of finding her way back to herself, back to the home within as she navigates moving, motherhood and miscarriage. There are so many wonderful nuggets of advice for all women trying to find their way back home to that authentic home within. Now I bring you Kathy Donaghy.
Hi, everybody. You are very welcome to the next edition of the Tracy Donaghy podcast. And I'm delighted to welcome Kathy Donaghy to the podcast today. Kathy is an award-winning journalist and is someone I've known for a while and an author of this really incredible book. I picked it up, I think it was probably in Dublin Airport, one of my many trips home. And it's such a phenomenal book, I think, for more mature women, I would say. I think women who are, as we're going to talk about, finding their way back to themselves and realizing that there's, we ignore the messages of the heart and mind. It gets buried by stress and everyday living. And Kathy's going to talk to us a little bit about finding your way back to yourself and what it takes. And it's not all rainbows and butterflies. There's definitely challenging lessons and challenging times that also are part of this really rich journey. So welcome, Kathy. Thank you so much for joining me today.
Thanks, Tracy. Thanks for having me here. It's a joy to connect with you again. And I hope you don't mind if I share with your listeners about how we actually met.
Sure,
because
yeah.
we met when I was expecting my first baby, and I signed up to your wonderful gentle birthing course because I knew absolutely nothing when it came to having a baby, but I also knew that I wanted to have the tools to be calm and relaxed. Whatever that birth looked like, I didn't want it to be prescribed or to say this is how it's going to go, or I didn't have a plan, but I just knew that I wanted to be as ready and in the moment as I could be and as relaxed as I could be to whatever would come up. And I found it just the most helpful, intuitive process. And also I think it really, it also sparked for me at that time, that's 15 years ago now, a practice of mindfulness and meditation that I took the tools that you gave us at that time, and they are with me in life in difficult situations. I mean, having a baby is stressful. Those moments of the fight or flight and the panic kicks in. And I think that the lessons I learned in that room with you, and I went back a second time to do it all over again when I was having my second baby because I really wanted to be ready. I feel that those tools have stood me in such good stead in other times of maybe difficulty or hardship or crisis. And I hear your voice in my head a lot. About letting go of the fear and even the language, the things that we say to ourselves in our own heads is really, really important. How we talk to ourselves. I think I learned so much. And maybe that's what, life is about too, that the people who pop up in your life are great teachers. And I think you were one of those people for me. I mean, teacher, not in the sense of the school, but, people that you meet along the way are like just signposts and of where you're meant to be going. So you were brilliant.
Well, thank you, Kathy. And especially like 15 years on, it's, I think one big aspect of gentle birth for me was just that, not that, of course, these are skills that will help you in pregnancy and birth and that stressful postpartum time. But I wanted to give parents, or at least not give them, but share some tools with them that will help them in the years after, So, for me, I have, a 20-year-old that's just about to turn 21 and a 13-year-old. And there have been lots of other challenges in life. And I think illness and relocations and so many aspects that, I didn't have any tools. I wouldn't have had any tools, only I had, started a practice of meditation and working with parents to help really train your mind, because the mind, as you know, when it's really can take you to some stressful places.
Mm,
But when you
mm,
become aware of it, then you have an option whether, okay, I'm going to continue down that stressful thought process, or I can be in the moment right now and recognize there's a lot of things going right for me
mm,
right
mm,
now, which we tend to, get up in the morning and it's like, what's wrong, instead of, well, actually, what's right today? What's going
mm,
well? And we kind of, we forget that aspect, and we just get caught up in the stress and the busyness of life.
mm, mm.
But yeah,
Yeah,
that's lovely to hear
yeah. Oh,
for
it's great. Yeah.
time on. And I do remember, like, it's so interesting. Like, there's a couple of people over the years that I remember. Like, I remember where you and your husband were sitting in the city north in that class. So it's so, yeah. I think the universe had meeting
I,
where we were
yeah.
supposed to meet,
Yeah, I
and
think so.
connect.
We've sort of connected over the years on and off as well, and I love following your journey and seeing how you've evolved and your career has evolved as well. It's really interesting. But that set me off on my own journey of really, I suppose, delving into this a little bit more. And it's something that I've tried to practice with the kids as well, that mindfulness
Mm,
and a wee bit of meditation when they were smaller or when they were worried about stuff. And honestly, it's really how our brains are wired, and if we just by paying attention and being in that moment, it's just so important for all of us, I think.
yeah. Oh, absolutely. And especially today, I mean, you can't turn on the news without something triggering or really distressing,
Mm-hmm.
in front of us, and on social media as well. So
Mm,
having the ability to pause all of the noise
mm,
and
mm,
really kind of, again, tune into, okay, this healthy for me to, to expose myself to so much negativity. It's not about, because I think there's this idea, if you meditate, you're just, you ignore all the injustices in the world. And I think you become more aware, but I think you become more aware of how you're spending your energy in those areas. So
mm,
whether you're an activist, you have to, if you want to continue on that pathway, and if that's meaningful for you, you have to be able to manage your own emotional energy to continue in
mm,
that work. And I think,
mm,
that's really evident for, for birth professionals as well, who are finding themselves in really difficult circumstances within the medical system. But if you can manage your emotional state and then regulate your own emotional state, you'll stay in that work longer and have a bigger impact on the women that you work with. So,
mm.
but
I
yeah,
get that.
I'd love to hear about how you really, what inspired you to write the book, and your journey really from the mad stress world of Dublin to moving back to beautiful Donegal. So
Yeah,
paint
yeah,
that picture for me, because
yeah,
your book is just
yeah.
beautiful.
The book, I suppose, the funny thing is, the book. I don't think I could have written the book at any other age except the one I was at, because it was a journey. It really was, and the book deals with 10 years of my life, of my family's life, but obviously it's told through my lens of how I saw the world, and obviously I have a very supportive husband and family, but I suppose it began. The story of the book starts with the birth of our second baby in Dublin, and me sort of questioning, both of us, Richard and I, questioning, is this the life we wanted anymore for ourselves and our kids? We'd kind of
Mm,
fallen out of love with Dublin. We met there and we were both working in newspapers, and then I went to work in RTÉ, and, we were very much, the two of us were caught up in a very much, I suppose, climbing the career ladder, and I guess when the kids came along, I didn't know the impact that having children was going to have. I thought it would be business as usual, that I would just go to work and,
mm,
I'd get a minder, and every mum is so different, and I thought that would be my journey. But what I found was I actually realized in my heart I wanted to be home for a bit. I wanted to be at home when the kids were small, and the job wasn't making me happy anymore. This thing that had filled me up so much. I loved telling stories and getting out on the job and on the beat, meeting
mm,
people, and it just came. I just felt really sad. I felt really sad when I wasn't there, to put my eldest son to bed, and then our second one arrived, and I just knew I wasn't going to be going back after my maternity leave ended. I just knew that this wasn't filling me up anymore. And I suppose around that time we realised that, well, what are we doing in Dublin? What there was I suppose a yearning for both of us to have a shot at a different life for us and our family. We both grew up in the country. Richard's from rural County Monaghan and I grew up in rural County Donegal. And I think we just felt, not that we were trying to recreate our childhood for our children, but we did want to be, I suppose, a bit more free range. We did have an idea of the country kids, the exploring the countryside, being immersed in nature as we were as kids, and that's not to say you can't be immersed in nature in the city, but for us it's very much as soon as you open the back door, you're in it. I live beside the sea, and I have a big woods, big native woods behind us, and it's very kind of elemental, and it's a very hopeful place, and it's the place of my childhood. And it's also been the place of my children's childhood, and they love being outdoors. They are very happy kids outdoors. I mean, they're big boys now, they're 15 and 12, but they're still kind of mesmerized by the natural world. And if they see something, Mama, you got to see this bird, or, they love that as well. And I think the thing that I'm most proud of as a parent is their absolute wonder and total respect for nature. If they see a little dead bird on the ground, it won't be left lying. They will pick it up and make sure it's got a little soft place to lie. They are really, really, that's the kind of boys they are. They just love, I suppose, being outdoors, and that's something I'm most proud of about them. But the book, I suppose it started off with us leaving Dublin, and it moved for, us setting down new roots in a place where it is very familiar to me. But when I came here first in 2012, I found myself completely at sea and completely lost in a place that was really familiar, because I didn't know who I was anymore. I had spent all these years building up a career as a journalist, and now I was at home as a stay-at-home mum with two small children, and thinking, is this it? And your days are filled with puree and food, and changing nappies and drop off to play school, and I thought, I don't know, this is fulfilling me either. What have I done? That push pull that mums feel all the time. Maybe you would say, well, maybe I had too many options, but at the same time, it was just about putting down roots.
Hey there, if you're enjoying this conversation and are passionate about evidence-based care in labour, the best way to support our work is to subscribe and share this episode with other amazing women in your life. Your support is so important to us and helps us reach more mothers with empowering content. So go ahead, hit that subscribe button and spread the love.
And there was an analogy. I thought it was really interesting. We had a beautiful rose bush that used to grow outside our house in Dublin. And it was a really old-fashioned rose, the smell of the ancient rose. And we dug it up and took it to Donegal with us, and I worried about this plant. I thought, it's not growing. It's not going to grow. And I saw it. It was almost like E.T. in the little plant. I was looking at this rose bush, tying my fortunes to it, looking and saying, well, if the rose bush will come and thrive and blossom again, maybe so will I. Well, there was nothing happening with the rose bush. And in the end, I did feel like I was flailing a bit. And in the middle of all this change, I decided, we should have another baby. I thought, maybe not one, why stop? One more, we'll fill the house, And I suppose that's when I really started to fall apart, I suppose, Tracy, because I experienced just a series of miscarriages, one sort of more devastating than the next, and some leading to surgeries afterwards, and just all of them leaving me completely unmoored in my own life and feeling like a failure and running away from myself and my home, and feeling I wasn't good enough. And what did I tore up what was a really good life to come here and look what's happened, look at the state that I'm in, and I really, really railed against that, and tried to, I suppose, kept trying to get pregnant. It didn't happen. Anybody who hasn't read the book, the third baby, the rainbow child, did not come to us, and I remember someone saying to me once, a very wise person saying to me, if you can't be happy with what you have, maybe you can't be happy. And I just said, I will have a third baby, that's it. In my naivety, you think, I'll just get on with it. I was someone who had always, I would be very driven, so things would happen on my command, not my command, but when I had a timeline. I was organized, I suppose. And then this was life telling me, you know what, you don't have the say here. Life doesn't go the way you want it to go. You can have some of the things some of the time, but you're not going to have all of the things all of the time. And I found it, as well as being so sad at the loss of all these babies that we wanted so much, I felt really sad for myself that, you know, that third child wasn't coming. And, you know, just what did the future hold? Where did I see my life? So I really was kind of literally at sea, flailing around, not knowing what to do really, and just pretty grief stricken, Tracy, to be honest, you know, and low. And I think miscarriages are really, it's such a difficult thing to experience, because society doesn't really allow you to grieve in the way that you would grieve, because they don't believe that there's anything there to grieve. They think, well, you didn't actually have a baby, so what are you crying about, or how could you be so upset? Even though for most women, the minute they see a line on a positive pregnancy test, you know, they've already got the dreams and they've seen that child out into the world, you know. But for me, it was just one after the other. So it was a real sense of failure. I think I just felt like such a massive failure, that I felt like I'd failed my kids, I'd failed my husband, my body had failed me, and I just really didn't enjoy my own company very much, and did everything to sort of distract myself. So started doing all kinds of like physical challenges, which were, I suppose they were okay. They got me over a certain hump, but you know, there was a certain sense of, I'm just buzzing around like this mad fly, bouncing off things, but really I'm not going anywhere. And eventually, and luckily I had a husband who was a very patient and kind man, who just let me run out of steam and could see exactly what was going on. Of course, the last person you ever ask for advice is the person who loves you most in the world. So he let me kind of burn myself out and was waiting for me, you know. So the book sort of, you know, the miscarriages are a pivotal part of it, but I think I also would like it to be very much to be seen as a journey of hope, because no, we didn't have our third baby, but I still had two boys to rear and a life to build. And I set about saying, right, you know, I'm fed up of this happening. I've got to take some control back into my life. And I found that getting outdoors was an amazing therapy. This is not like one big panacea, Tracy. It wasn't like I woke up one day and walked out. It was sort of small steps and of discovery and letting things go one bit at a time. And you know, actually enjoying my own company again, enjoying being on my own, maybe going for a walk on the beach. And swimming became a very big part of that, and immersing myself in the water, a place where I didn't feel judged, a place where I didn't feel sad. It was just, I mean, sometimes getting in water is kind of like stimulating the fight or flight in yourself, because it's cold and it's not our habitat. So in a sense, I felt more myself there in a place that's not, is a strange place for a human being to feel safe sometimes, you know. But that's what it became. It became almost like a home, and I sought it out more and more and more. And then I would take myself off to, you know, beautiful beach in Inishowen that I love called Culdaff, and I might walk there and I might swim, and I found myself going further and further and dipping my toes in and having experiences in nature and feeling that I'm very much a believer in, you know, not organized religion as such, but in spirituality of the natural world, of little signs being left to tell you, you know what, you're on the right path. You know,
Foxes.
the foxes, you know. In the madness of miscarriage, I imagined, and I wrote some poems around this at the time, I imagined that my babies had metamorphosed into foxes. Foxes became spirit animals for me. They became like, you know, when I would see a fox, I would say the natural world had sent the fox for me to say, okay. And, you know, they're still like that. I still see a fox and I stop and I gasp, and you know, you know, nature can send us these little things, like you might find a feather or the robin that land on the car, you know, on the mirror of the car or something. Just little signs that not huge things, nothing that adds up to. You couldn't say they're substantial, but for me, they were just they were kind of like little markers, and people were like that too. People would come into your life at odd times, and you would wonder, oh, why, you know, they've been sent to me. And I think if you're open to all of that, you know, and as Steve Jobs said, it's only when you look back that you see the dots of your life joining up. I fully understand now that miscarriage was always going to be part of my story. It was, I would have railed against that at the time of even saying the words, that it was, the right thing for me. It was part of my life, a huge turning point, a pivotal time of change that was hard and horrible, and I wouldn't go back to it. But I also realized that it changed me fundamentally as a person. It made me appreciate my life, my boys, and it also made me realize, what, you control nothing. We may as well get up in the morning and be present for those we love, for ourselves, and that's kind of the gift, to try and be there for those moments. That's what life is about. So I guess the book traces that journey, and it's a 10-year tranche of life with ups and downs, and hopefully some learning in there from the wisdom of someone who's gone through some hard things, and is still showing up in the world, still joyful, still hopeful. And I hope that, by telling my story, and I know that it has resonated with so many women already, women who, have been hurt by miscarriage, but have not felt that society has allowed them to speak about that hurt. So a lot of women have contacted me, and a lot of women of all ages have just said, what, there's hopefully there's joy and wisdom in it. And I think, for anyone, I hope that the natural world can become such an important part of your healing journey, or just your everyday, and just noticing and witnessing the absolute monumental, life-changing power of a sunrise, or a little bird singing, or just, small things that are not so small at all.
Yeah, the ordinary in, yeah, what does this? It's the extraordinary in the ordinary. It's yeah, and it is, and when we're not present, when we're totally distracted on our phones, and then we miss all of these little, hopeful signs, and just miss like the beauty of nature. And it's been a bit of a while now since I've been up to Donegal. I actually did we spent some time up there as kids up in Guidor, I think it was, and just those beaches and that, it's stunning, And every time I see, your posts come up on Facebook about there was a picture you posted there recently. I think it was you and your dog out on the beach, and it was like sunset, and it was just the picture just radiates, hope and nature, and just, it was just gorgeous. And seeing you out in the water and everything, because it's, the only time I've done open water, or seawater swimming over the years have been like skerries. Skerries, either you jump in at the deep end, literally, I think that's the captain's there, or you have to walk out 10 miles to get anywhere, the water above your knees, and it's freezing. So, but I think I do the cold plunge, not the same, but it's when your body and mind, when you hit that cold water, you have no other choice but to be present. It takes all of your focus, because all you can think of is, I have to regulate my breathing. Because otherwise that panic just overwhelms you. So being able to, and it's great to, train yourself to go through stressful moments, and still be able to have some kind of control over how we're responding to those stressful moments. But it's such a, I can't say it's an enjoyable stressor, but there is this feeling of, especially when you're out in the ocean, of just connection with the bigger picture and with life. And you in your book, you talk about, the seal that you see, and you're barking back at the seal, and it's almost like this interaction between you and the seal, and it's like, oh, it's just, we are connected on every level with every life form in the world, and but again, where we spend so much time, indoors on our phones, and that so many of us really miss out on just the gorgeousness of nature, and especially the gorgeousness of nature in Ireland. It's absolutely spectacular.
It is. Yeah, it's beautiful. I think, for me, that sense of the water is, it's a getting out of your head, I think, because a lot of us, we live in our head, our anxieties, and I'm not good enough. Oh, and especially as a mother, I think you second guess yourself all the time. And, every day you've got, oh, I wonder about this, or the list that never ends, So for me, when I go for the swim, it's like there's a pause. It's a big blue pause, because you're not thinking about anything else except, and your body doesn't know that there's no risk. Your body just feels this cold and goes into complete what's going on. And then you get in there, and as you say, you regulate your breathing. And there's a few moments where, for me, you'll always witness something. It might be a seal, or there could be a cormorant on a rock, or a bird flies overhead, or just even the quality of the water, or the horizon, or just a little glimmer of light, or the way that something jumps in the distance, or a buoy on the horizon. Just so many things that absolutely call your attention in that moment, where you're not thinking about the list or the things that you have to do. You are actually in that moment in complete communion with your surroundings. And I decided on New Year's Day, when I felt that, there was just an anxiety. It's probably menopause or perimenopause, whatever it is, that anxiety was getting a wee bit more shrill, let's say. That noise in my head was just getting louder. So I just said, you know what? I made a little promise to myself that I was going to swim every day, for 100 days. That was my pledge. I'm up to, this is the 27th of February. So I've been in every day since New Year's Day. And it's like now I crave it. Now I crave the feeling that I have afterwards, that moment of joy, of connection, and of, yes, exhilaration as well, of having been in there. Because even if the day's grey and murky and cold, it changes something. It's almost like it dials down a noise in your head, but it also dials up a level of joy, So for me, it's and because it's on my doorstep, and one of the things that when we moved to Donegal, for both me and my husband, that was important, was that connection to the sea. Was really important, that we would find a way to incorporate it into our recreation, that it would be, because it's on our doorstep, that it would become a part of our lives. So that was something that was important. And for me, it's the first thing I do when I look out the window in the morning is I see what way the tide is looking, and see whether it's in or it's out, and is it a good time to go now, or will I wait till I get the kids to school, or will I go mid-afternoon, or I'll try and see, and I try to go in the morning, because it's just an instant mood lifter. The morning, it's just it's glorious. So it's just, I mean, it's not the answer to all else, but I tell you, it cures a lot of the stuff, the noise that goes on in your head.
Absolutely. And I, when we left California, and we had access to the Pacific Ocean, and now we're kind of central Texas. So we got lots of lakes around us when we get enough rain. But I definitely miss, there's, I think many of us have this calling to be near the ocean. And I guess, and we're 70% or 70% water, I think, ourselves in our body anyway. But I definitely miss that. Just even the sound of the waves is really, really soothing, and just feeling your feet in the sand. And again, it gives you an opportunity to be present, and even just for a minute or two, and just use all your senses, and leave the mind behind.
Yeah. I agree. There's one thing I just wanted to share with you, Tracy. Where I come from, my family, my dad and his family were salmon fishermen, and the salmon drift netting is banned now, but they were small fishermen. They had a small boat. They would go out, and during the salmon, what was called the salmon season, every year, when the salmon would run down the foil, and they would go out and catch some fish. So salmon were revered in my house, and but so the sea is somewhere where it's very revered as well. And when a lot of my family members, like great aunts and uncles who emigrated, would come back for summers here, that they had a ritual that the first thing that they did when they would come home was they would go down and wash their feet in the foyle, which is just across the road. It's a ritual of homecoming and healing, and they found that there was that. They used to talk about the healing properties in the seaweed and to walk there, but it was very much a necessity. And I find myself that for me, it's also a place of deep connection with my past and my family. And when I'm in that water and I'm if I close my eyes, I can almost feel, the little waves from the punt from my great uncle going past. And for me, it's a place of, this is where they were, and this is where I am raising my children as well. And I love that, I love that connection with place, and that's coming full circle as well. It's maybe taking the time to pause and enjoy those things, because I certainly, when we first moved here, was not thinking about things like that. I think I was just in kind of survival mode, really.
Yeah. And it's so lovely that it's when, that your kids are going to, when kind of, we're long gone, that your kids will have that really such, that long family tradition of being in that area, and the memories that they'll have of their life there. It's just, I mean, I think, what's the definition of success as a parent? It's, your kids being good people, and really, they become good people by how, how we show up for them, and in the positive and the negative ways. And I think your boys are just so lucky. I mean, you're all so lucky. But tell me, does Richard join you in the ocean very often, or the kids? Or
The irony is, Tracy, Richard was swimming in the sea when I met him. So actually, before I was really, like, when I met Richard, he was getting in, and I used to think, this is a bit mad. I remember us going off to the Aran Islands one January and thinking, what's he doing? It's freezing cold. I'm not going to do that. And it was when we came back to Donegal, that the two of us sort of said, you know what, let's give this a go all year round. We want that to happen. But like, I could swim, but I wasn't an accomplished swimmer. I certainly wasn't a good one. And I think if you're getting into the sea, it's not our habitat, it's not our comfort zone. I think you have to have a few skills, probably, if you're going to swim rather than just dip. And just, near where I live, there's a town called Moville, and in the middle of the foyle stands this beautiful old Victorian freestanding lighthouse. It's Moville Lighthouse. And I used to look at it and think, I want to become a good enough swimmer to swim out there and back. It's a swim of about 2 kilometres. And I thought, how am I going to do that? I'm nowhere near that. Absolutely nowhere near that, So I went back to basics with my swimming, which became almost another very social outlet for me. I went back to basics with swimming, and I went to the local pool across the border in Derry, and I went every week. And then I built up my skills. I made some friends, a group of women who were there every same morning I happened to be there, who said, well, we're going to be here, why don't you join us? Which was really nice. And one of them is one of my closest friends to this day. And she became one of my closest friends. And then I took on some challenges, and bit by bit, swimming is a very slow progress. It's small increments of progress. But then gradually, all of a sudden, you become a good swimmer. You become someone who's, quite a good swimmer. And that kind of crept up on me too. And then just after lockdown, myself and a group of friends, we swam out to the lighthouse on the most beautiful, calm, sunny day. And we had our backup crew, which was our own families in kayaks. And we did it. And it was a feeling of complete euphoria. It felt again like coming full circle. Something that had got me into the water in the first place was now, just a little, it was just a light bulb moment that I had. I'd love to be able to swim out there. And it's brought so much to my life. Swimming has brought so many friendships and fitness and health and well-being, I think. And hopefully it's good for the head more than anything else. But it's been such a gift, really,
Yeah, and it can be hard when when you have a busy career and kids, to find that time for fitness, but I really, I mean, I kind of sporadically got into different elements of fitness, and then it kind of it didn't really keep me going for a while, and then I picked up running there a couple of years before COVID.
I saw that. Great.
But we were in California, and you can run in California weather, but then we came to Texas, and if you weren't running at like 4 o'clock in the morning, it was too hot. So I kept it up for a couple of years when we came down here for it. But now I'm like, I have a rowing machine that I'm on every day, and I just love it. I'm 3 years now, and it's like every day, it's like first thing I do in the morning, get on the rower, because it really does, it kickstart your day, the mood. And now I can't, I'm in my 50s now, and I can't see never not rowing. I would hate to get to a point where through injury or whatever, I can't really do some, really intense exercise for a couple of minutes every day. But I think sometimes as we get older, we feel like, oh, exercise is important now. And I think it's, especially with menopause, because it can mess with your mind. It messes with your body a lot, but when, with the anxiety and everything, I think having, a healthy outlet to and it's again like the importance of your bone strength and muscle, because we tend to lose that as we get older. But I think for anyone who's watching, even if you can't access the beautiful beaches of Donegal, there are ways that you can incorporate fitness into your life that can be meaningful as well as as functional.
And I think you're right, Tracy. It doesn't have to be like for me, it can be a bit sporadic. It can be a case of, right, well, where am I going to be? I might just get the dog in the car and go and walk the beach. And I still kept up my practice of and it is quite ring fenced that I swim once a week with a club, and it is a fairly high intensity hour. We might swim a couple of kilometers, and we will, we'll push one another along, and that is with a club. And for me, that's kind of like the plank of the week. So everything else, if I do one beach dog walk and maybe one throw down the yoga mat, or, that's kind of, I know that that's kind of taken care of, but I think sometimes we do have to ring fence something that is a plank of our week, that is something that we do that's physical, and then build around that. I don't think of it as something I might do every day. If I get a chance to nip out, I will, but if I have one thing that I do and then I can build on that, it kind of works out. But movement is such a joy, and it's like, I've heard so many things said about, like, you don't use it, you lose it. So we've got to, and for me, swimming is such a great all-round movement. You're moving every part of you without really that impact of stress. I used to run as well. I ran for years and years, and I don't enjoy running the same way. I think since I turned 50, I'm really, I don't know, I'll do the odd jog, but it's a chore now compared to what it used to be. So I suppose you have to do what you love, and that makes everything easy.
That's it, because if it is something that you love, then you don't have to think about it. You don't have to make yourself do it, and it's not a chore, because we have enough of that in our lives. And I think as women and as mothers, it's part of our DNA, unfortunately, to sacrifice and to put ourselves at the bottom of the list. But I think, as I've found in recent years, as I'm getting older, is that I have come back up to the top of the list again, and it feels really good, and it's good for everybody in the family when my needs are taken care of, and not in a selfish way, but when I'm actually I deserve to take up space in this family as well, and there's things that happy mom, well, usually happy everybody else in the house as well. So
I also think that it can be really encouraging for kids. Like, mine have always seen me go to my swim sessions, and even though there might be nights where I dread, like I could say, oh my god, I'm going to dread it tonight, it's going to be tough, we're doing this or we're doing that, and they'll see me go out the door with my gear packed and my water in my bag and go, and I think they realize that sometimes the things that you do, for yourself, for your own personal fitness goals, are hard, and they tend to, that's just what we do, and it's not that I'm not, if they're not well, of course they'll not go to their running sessions, but I'll say, you know what, we do have to sometimes push ourselves a little bit to do stuff, because on a winter's night, who doesn't want to sit in front of the fire and watch it? But we have to say, right, pack the gear bag, I'll feel better when I come back. And I think I did really feel a responsibility to lead by example there as well, that if I can show them that, some nights I don't feel like it, but I still go, that's no harm either,
Yeah, it's definitely teaching commitment, and perseverance. I think so. And maybe it's just my age that's shown, but I feel like, the youth of today, it feels like, if it's any way hard, I'm not doing that. Or I think there is so much growth in doing difficult things, that's internal growth, that it's a missed opportunity. But I think, I'm sure if I was 25, I'd be thinking, might be thinking the same way. That's a bit,
I know.
Why put myself through that, But I think as you get older, your perspective changes, and it's like, I
But you
think a
got,
little
I
bit of,
think you're right, but you got to want it to. I mean, if I think about swimming, for me, I have worked so hard. I have worked so hard. I have spent hours and hours and hours in the pool, sessions on my own, sessions to, to get to a proficiency where, I'm proud of that journey. And I
mm,
can, it's made me more resilient. It's made me fitter. It's brought me friendships and adventures and challenges. But it has been hard. It has been hard won. Every sort of
mm,
little degree faster or better or stronger that you get has been hours of practice and commitment. I mean,
yeah,
I'm never going to be winning the Olympics or, anything like that. That's over. But at the same time, I'm really proud of the fact that I worked hard to become a good swimmer. It's
yeah.
definitely a very big thing in my life that I'm proud of.
Yeah. And I think especially, and I keep bringing up the age thing again, as, getting older and feeling, there's this kind of two opposing, aspects of menopause, and is a feeling that, oh, when you disappear when you're that older woman, and then you have the wise crone, and that idea of, I think we've just, yeah, I think I'd like to get back to the wise crone aspect of, and
Yeah.
learning from our elders, and
Mm, mm,
which I
mm.
think is really important.
Yeah,
Um,
I love that.
so in your book, you talk a lot about coming home to yourself,
Mm,
and I guess, how do you find your own wild? So for our listeners and viewers who are watching today, what suggestions would you give to someone who is struggling and trying to find their way back to themselves, really?
mm. Okay, yeah. I'm I think sometimes I'm really bad at giving advice. I think I sort of probably tell stories to try and maybe illustrate the path that I've taken. And I would say it's not for everyone. And you know what? The thing about wild, it looks different for everyone.
Mm,
Everybody's interests are going to be different. But I feel that most women would recognize that little kernel of whatever sparks joy in you, that you remember back to your girlhood, whatever that was. Maybe it was being, for me, it was standing at the shore, poking through seaweed and picking winkles and just the joy of that.
mm,
And for me, it was definitely being outdoors. But for some women, that might look like, the joy of sitting down and with a book. It might be, going for a walk. It could be like everyone has to find their own little thing, whatever that is. And sometimes it gets so dusty and dark from lack of use or putting everybody else's needs first. It's almost like a
yeah.
hustle. So we've got to go and really look for it. And I think sometimes if you look back, for me, when I think of my life now, it resembles my childhood self much more closely than it has done for any part of the intervening years. I am closer to the girl that I was at 50 years old than I have ever been at any time in my life. And that makes me so happy because
Mm,
I had a collie as a kid, and I have a collie again who's like one of the great loves of my life. And getting in the car with him when the kids have gone to school, I love the kids' company, or my husband's, but this is just a simple thing and it costs nothing. Getting into the car with that dog and going to the beach, playing my music loud, what I want to hear, not what anybody else wants to hear, playing the music loud and getting to the beach and throwing a stick, and the two of us sitting high in the dunes after our walk, just looking out to sea, that makes me more wildly happy than anything else in this whole world. It is simple and it costs nothing, but it's actually something I did as a kid. That was me. And I think if we all go back and we think, what made me really happy? What did I love to do? And sometimes, not everybody maybe had a childhood where they had that
mm,
sense of happiness. So maybe you
yeah.
got to find it. Maybe you got to go and search for that part of you that is discovering something new. And maybe, if that wasn't your upbringing or your background, maybe trying to find new things or trying something new can spark that interest or joy in you. But for me, it's definitely almost like literally coming full circle. It is about coming home to myself. And for a long time, the home that I presented myself with was not, it was very inhospitable. I was not a welcoming person for myself. I was full of love, I hope, for my family and my friends, but I didn't have a lot to offer myself. When I looked in the mirror, I didn't see someone worthy of my love. I saw a body that had let me down, and I was very critical of myself in all aspects of myself. My physical appearance, my physical body. I was very just, it was just get out of the shower as quick as possible. Just, literally, I don't want to, this body that I'm inhabiting is not a friendly place, And then gradually, by spending more time on my own and actually just being outdoors, and I felt this huge sense of friendship again with myself that grew to more than friendship, that grew to the point where I love my own company. And that sounds maybe really cringy, but I love spending time on my own. I like, mostly the voice in my head is kind. Of course, it has days when it rises up and is shrill and mean, but mostly the person I like spending time with a lot is myself. And I write for a living, so it's better that I like spending time in my own company, because I've got to inhabit this headspace quite a bit. So I mean, when I moved back to Donegal, I talk about in the book how it was a homecoming, but the book is also about coming home to yourself, and the home that I'm talking about there is not just the physical landscape of Donegal. It's very much your own heart, and that has to welcome you. You have to be welcome in your own heart fully. And I think if you can do that, then you have a chance to be happy. And that's what life is all about, isn't it, really?
That's it, absolutely. And I'm Kathy, I don't know why you don't have your own podcast yet, because I think people would just sit and listen to your storytelling, and there's so much of it resonates with myself, and I'm sure many listeners, and that idea of coming home to yourself and just being like, we have one body, and we have a short time on this planet, and if we can't find a way to change our relationship and really befriend this one body that we have, we're going to, not spend it in misery, but there's such an opportunity there to really like ourselves. And as women, I think we're so hard on ourselves, and we're with that feeling of not enoughness. And I know when you finish your book about, yes, getting to that realization that, yes, I am enough. And I think so many women need to hear that message, that no matter what happens, and you're always going to look back and think, was I enough for my children? Did I do enough? Did I spend enough time? And you just have to find a place of self-compassion and acceptance within yourself that, yes, I am enough, and I need to be welcome in my own heart, and not every day, but as often as we can, and not see our body as an enemy that we have to share this space with for the rest of our lives. But I'm just thinking now, we're going to have a rash of reports on the news about dogs being kidnapped and taken off the beaches with these women with their loud music, because it is such to give yourself permission, I think, for anyone out there, give yourself not to go kidnap a dog, but and go take them to the beach, but they might enjoy it, but just give yourself permission when you feel that little that voice inside. Oh, wouldn't it be nice? Why don't I do this? And follow that intuition. And I just don't think it won't turn you wrong when we spend so much time in our that reasonable head and weighing up pros and cons. As the Nike commercial says, just do it. Get in the car. Just take the first step out the door and just see where you end up. And having that again, ring fencing that time for yourself. Be selfish in a positive way, that you are taking care of your, nurturing your mind, body, and soul every time you take that time to look after yourself. And we deserve it. We really do.
We deserve it, and not in a, you're right, Tracy, and not in a, like, I know in the makeup ads, you're worth it, and that's on a very superficial level. But we are actually worth it. If you're not worth it, then who is? And I think we always know, we always know what's good for us really deep down. And sometimes I hear myself saying, someone will ask me to do something, I'll say, okay, and I can kind of go, oh, and you're looking at someone to think, well, you take the cue. You can see that I'm not really all in with this, but I'm going to do it anyway. But I've got a bit better at saying, actually, I don't think I can do that. that's not going to suit me. And sometimes people, especially in creative industries, people like you to do stuff, and then they you'll do loads of stuff, and there's never, where do you fit in all of this? And if it doesn't fit into your, you can spread yourself so thinly that what have you got left? Women, sometimes I think we need to step into our own power and just say, you know what, that's not going to suit me, or I'm just not, I'm really learning this. I'm not good at it by any means, but I think I might have to practice, and just say, you know what, that's not for me. That's not for me. And that's okay. That's all we have to say. Men are really good at this. I don't think I could do that. No, they're really good at it. But women, we're such people pleasers, I think. And we've always, we've been raised to sort of, oh yeah, that's fine, I'll do that. Yes, 3 bags full, sir, And I think that we need to get good at saying, well, you know what, is that going to take you away from that wee bit of time that you had to get out for your walk or your swim? If you say yes to this, what are you saying no to for yourself? Because that's so important. If it means that then your little thing that you had ring fenced that was joyful that you can't do, then you need to say no to that thing. That's kind of, I'm really trying to tune into that now, because if it means that I don't get to go for a walk with the dog, and yes, obviously I've got to work, and but I try and steal pockets. I steal those pockets so that that joy can still come in, and I feel like, yeah, that was my time for me before the kids come in, and the dinner's got to be made and they've got to be ferried around to their after school activities. I feel like in the back of my head, I've had, so I can fully be present, and better mother and partner, that I have my stuff too, and I'm getting better at doing that. Not perfect by any means, but better at it.
Yeah, saying no is, and meaning no is, it's definitely a hard practice for women to, it really is, because we're the people pleasers, and we feel like we spend so much time focused on what other people will think about us, instead of, well, actually, how do I think about myself when I do stuff that I really don't want to do, that I will resent doing, because I know it's taking time away from things that really do bring me joy. And I think, I think it takes a lot of courage to start using that word more frequently, and really putting yourself and your needs above, when possible. I know we most of us can't choose our employment, and might not have access to beaches, but I think if you can getting, sitting down for 5 minutes and reading a couple of pages of a book before your kids come in, or playing a favorite piece of music and just jumping around the kitchen for a little bit, or whatever that is, quiet cup of tea and a hobnob. That it's the finding those little moments of joy that, as you say, like, they all string together then. And
they do, and it's almost like, as well, people talk about, we become good at what we practice, and if we practice doing the things that bring us joy, as you say, and you string them together, gradually they add up to quite a lot. They might be just small moments, but they do sort of, you're making the practice, you're making the commitment to doing it. And I always think, not to make it transactional, or it should be like running yourself like a business or anything, but I think if we make time to root out what's not working for us, and do the things that make us happy, even a little bit of it every single day, then that, it's the creation of a habit. And we talk about, the 21 days to form a habit, so we can start small, and then I think as you go along, you really find what works for you. And for me, like, it is mostly, about the wild places and discovering things and seeing wild creatures and observing wildlife in its natural habitat, and going to a place where there's not another soul, that I'm the first person to make marks in the sand. They make me really happy, those things. And everybody's going to be different, what works for them. But I think just, even just spending a bit of time, and do women actually ever sit down and say, what makes me happy? We think about the list, we think about everybody else's needs, we think about what we're cooking for dinner, to the point of absolutely, it would blow your mind every single day. But do we ever actually sit for a little bit of time and say, what makes me, what are the things? And some women I know have got to the stage of midlife where they don't know what makes them happy anymore, and I find that, I'm not being judgmental about that. It's just, it's a reflection of the society that we live in. The grown adult woman do not know what are the things that light them up, because they've spent so many years looking after other people. And that's just a travesty. And I think one little day at a time, we should be taking back that power to say, this is my time. This is not, this is for me. I got to find the things that make me happy, because if I can't be happy, then we spread our happiness like little ripples in our world as well. And if I'm not happy, sometimes I see the kids, I'm like the mirror, I'm like the big mirror. Their dad is great, but oh, are you okay, mom? They look to me to reflect back. So I feel like, yeah, I not that I have to be in good form, or I am in good form all the time, but you have to work on stuff. You have to put the effort in that what works for you, and you try and do it.
Yeah.
Mm.
Kathy, this has been wonderful, and I knew it would be. I've been looking forward to this for
Oh, me
many,
too.
many weeks.
Me
It's
too.
lovely to reconnect, and
Mm.
so many little nuggets of wisdom for everyone to really take away from
Oh, I
today's
hope so.
episode. And
I hope so. I really enjoy chatting to you again. It's just, sometimes your voice in my head is such a calming, reassuring voice that I find myself that everything, all the cortisol starts to just drop down. You did your job so well that I feel very, very relaxed sitting here talking to you.
well,
So I
that's good.
hope that I was able to make sense.
No, this was really lovely, and I so appreciate you spending the time with me
Oh, I,
today.
I
So
enjoyed it very much, Tracy. Thanks for having me.
thank you, Kathy.
Thank you so much for tuning into today's episode. Remember, empowerment begins with knowledge. If you enjoyed our time together and want more content like this, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share with your friends. So stay inspired, stay informed, and until next time, take care of yourself.